Hi, folks, and welcome to another conversation around football. This time we won't be discussing the League of Ireland, but the wide competitions in Europe. So we'll focus on the Premier League, but we won't neglect some other football leagues in England, also Scotland, and the equivalent in Europe. So I have two great experts on the matter. You probably are familiar with them. One is Jeroen Vandommele, who has been with me mostly for culture and life experience, but he's also very keen on football. You'll see how much he's aware of the stuff. He's a sportsman himself, so I think he's a great fit for this episode. And I have Cornell, our Thursday expert, who has been pleasing the whole of Ireland with your insights on the League of Ireland. So it's good to have you here for this topic too. I just want to ask you before we move on, for you guys just to introduce yourselves in terms of sports affiliations. You know, what's the team that your heart beats for? No, just that kind of thing. So I start with Cornell. He's just put the glasses. I can see he's very keen to talk. So tell us, Cornell, about your sports affiliations and how, you know.
My sports abbreviation is obviously my name is for people that don't know, who are new to the channel and to the podcast. My name is Cornell. I am a follower of the League of Ireland. I love the League of Ireland. I love watching the League of Ireland, talents and the teams that are in it that really impress me, and obviously something that I can really talk about as well. I also support Lincoln City in England, who obviously are aiming to end their 64-year wait of getting promoted to play Championship football, which they haven't played since the 60s in 64. And also on the side, I follow Liverpool FC, who are champions of the Premier League for a second time and leveled with Manchester United with 20 Premier League titles and hoping to win it again next season.
Right. I think that's a great introduction. Jeroen, would you like to tell a couple of things about yourself when it comes to sports, in particular football? I know you're also very much into rugby, but no harm.
Yeah, so I've gone more towards rugby in the last couple of years, but I've always been a follower of Chelsea. That's my club. I've been a follower since I was, 17, 18 years old, through the good times and the not so good times. I'm also a follower of my city in Belgium. That's originally where I'm from, which is Ghent. So I'm a follower of Ghent, or AA Ghent, and I kind of keep an eye on the Belgian league as well as the European leagues as well. I kind of, dip in and out of the European leagues as well. So, I suppose I'm a football fan in general. Wherever there's good football, I'll be watching it. And obviously things like, Champions League, Europa, Conference League, obviously because we just won it, and all of those kind of things. That's kind of what I'd be following. So I've always been a Chelsea fan, and will be for the rest of my days, But I keep an eye on other teams as well, and I guess my sort of second team in the UK, if you can have that, is Newcastle, just because a good friend of mine, Newcastle fan. I've been to Newcastle loads of times. Geordies are amazing people, and that's kind of my second team in England. But I have a couple of teams all over that I keep an eye on, but specifically Ghent and Chelsea. So that's me in a nutshell, really.
So far, no mention of Man United. and somehow I'm not surprised.
No, let's not go with that. Let's not go there. But it's been a wonderful season for us who don't really support Man United.
Yeah, and I think there is more to come. So we have our good friend here, John, just sharing. Oh, we have a football show on a Sunday. I know it's unusual. Typically, we do these things on Thursday, but we decided to hold this session on a Sunday, and the reason is like the season is wrapping up, so we need to do this as soon as possible. I also have some travel on the pipeline, a couple of commitments, so we're doing this now as we finish the 24-25 season. So if you guys are into football, stay around for the next hour or 90 minutes. If you enjoy what we do here, it would be great if you can award us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it's great if you can do that. And if you know someone who's into sports or football conversations, it would be good if you can share. I also want to mention that this episode is sponsored by a travel device. So if you are interested in going on a tour to a part of the road that you're not very familiar with, the best you can do is get the discount code I added on the YouTube description and contact Travel Devise. There are two ways to be in touch with those guys. One is via phone, another is using email. But either way, if you mention the discount code I have there, they can tailor a trip according to your wishes and needs. And it can be for yourself, or it can also be for a group, because they're also specialized in tours. So make sure you use that if you haven't planned your 2025 trip. So let's jump into the football action, and let's start with the Premier League. So first things first, let's start with the team who finished at the top of the table for Cornell's delight. So I'd like to ask you, Cornell, when it comes to Liverpool, I think there was some concerns about the post Klopp era, because Klopp, he was someone who marketed Liverpool for a good few years. You know, there was some legacy about what Klopp delivered to Liverpool. So not everyone was confident what's going to happen year after. Would Liverpool need a few years? And I think the response couldn't be more positive.
Yeah, I think when Jurgen Klopp came in, his plan was to make sure that Liverpool were a successful team, which they already are. You know, with previous managers that have come in and got them to be where they needed to be. I mean, it took Jurgen Klopp 5 seasons to basically go on and try and win a Champions League trophy, a Premier League trophy. I mean, look, 2020 was the year that COVID came in. There was no fans. They had to have a fake fan speaker in stadiums. We couldn't go in stadiums. We couldn't do anything. We had to stay at home and watch our teams, play in front of an empty crowd, an empty stadium. But Jurgen Klopp came in with a purpose, and that was to win. That was to make sure that he can bring in the right players at the right time for Liverpool. Liverpool have been dominant because of Salah. Yeah, we're talking about Mohamed forward slash Mo Salah here. We're talking about a player who ended this season with 29 goals this season, most assists, obviously soon to be level with the likes of Andy Cole and so on. We're talking about a front three. Salah was there at the time. I mean, look, Chelsea didn't really made him into the player that he wanted to be. Jose Mourinho made him look like a fool at Chelsea, and that's the reason why he left, and he went to Fiorentina and went Roma, and then Liverpool came knocking. But Klopp made Liverpool at the team that they are today because he brought in Mane, he brought in Firmino, he brought in players that wanted to play for the club. He brought in the best goalkeeper in the world, like Alisson, who has been on fire, absolute fire for Liverpool. He's brought in Van Dijk, who's the best defender in centre back in the world right now. I mean, probably not as good as John Terry and not as good as Rio Ferdinand and Vidic and so on, but Van Dijk has shown that he can be reliable. Salah has done the same thing. he's been reliable because with the goals and how quick he can go forward and how he can really make defenses look like they've seen a ghost. Now Diaz is in the fold. We all thought he was probably going to leave this summer, but it's not true. It's false. Gakpo is the same thing. That is the reason why Klopp has made such a legacy. And now that Slot's come in now, came in the first half of the season. He only made one signing, that was Federico Chiesa, who's been an absolute flop. I don't know what possessed Slot to go and buy him in the first place, because if I was Slot, I would never buy him in the first place. I would have bought somebody else. But they didn't spend the money as you would expect them to do, like Manchester City. They've spent the money crazily and brought all these players in as you expect them to do. And that's the reason why they've got all that charges and everything going on outside on the pitch. But Liverpool, Liverpool are on fire because they worked hard as a team. They never gave up. They showed the quality. They showed the class because they wanted to be a successful team. Trent Alexander-Arnold, for prime example, as I've got to mention, one of the best right-backs that came out of the youth academy. Jurgen Klopp made him into the player that he is today, and that's the reason why he's gone on to Real Madrid, for 10 million. He's gone there. Yes, not a lot of Liverpool fans are very happy about that. They are not happy that he's gone, but he has to move on. There's nothing that, Liverpool can do to keep him. They've got a replacement now. Jeremy Frimpong is in right now. A player that's played in the Bundesliga, who's got accelerating pace, who can go forward, make things happen, put cross into the box. That is who you're talking about. Kerkez is coming. That is a big statement. Wirtz coming. Obviously, possibly could be Isak could be on his way. I mean, I've read that Joe Pedro is going to be the replacement for Isak. So if Isak does go out the door, which probably looks likely because Liverpool's not giving up on him and they've been given 175 million to spend, they will spend it wisely. They won't spend it unwisely. But when you look at Liverpool's team now, you look at Slot. Slot came with a vision, and the vision was, okay, approach the first half of the season with full positivity, full confidence, and full belief. And to show the Liverpool fans, because I'll be honest, those Liverpudlians and the players, they wasn't sure of Slot. No one wasn't sure of Slot because they were thinking, well, who are you? You've just come from the Dutch league, yeah. You've just come from from Feyenoord. You've won trophies there and been successful there. How are you going to be successful in the Premier League? Because this is the thing with certain managers, yeah. When managers come from the Bundesliga, if they come from the Liga or the Scottish League, for example, they think that they will come into the Premier League and say, okay, they can play their way. Like when Ruben Alterim came into the fold, yeah, he feels that he can still play his football, like he did in the Portuguese league, yeah. Ernst Slot, we all thought he was going to be a new version of Erik ten Hag. Because when Erik ten Hag came from Ajax, all those Manchester United fans were completely hyped about him, and they were saying, "Oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do the other." And look at that, he's flopped, and he got the sack. Yeah, Spurs was the same thing, but Liverpool did it the Liverpool way. Yeah, they didn't do it Man City way. That's the reason why Man City and Liverpool is always rivaling with each other. And that's the reason why there is always a massive rivalry between both teams and on spending and players they want to buy. Liverpool worked hard. They never gave up. They kept on going and going and going because there were Premier League fans that were thinking, how is Liverpool doing this? How are they having the positive mentality that they had this season in the Premier League? Reason is because Slot knew his starting 11. Yeah, Klopp knew his starting 11 too. He knew what formation he wanted to play. He knew what style of play he wanted to play. His style of play is playing jitter press football. He played that the season before when he was there before he stepped down. Yes, maybe the energy kind of like went down a bit, and we were all thinking, well, he signed a new deal till like 2026, and we all thought he was going to stay on. But then they decided, well, time's up and let him go. So Ernst Slot came in, and it was easy for Ernst Slot. Ernst Slot had it easy and said, you know what, do your thing. You line them up how you want to line them up. If you want to line them up 4-2-3-1, play tiki-taka football, let him do that. And Ernst Slot did that. But look, the reason why they won the Premier League is because of that front three. I always say that Salah is the reason why they won the Premier League, because of his goals, his technical ability, his quality on the ball. He is the reason why. You know, Diaz, again, fantastic player, never stops running. Gakpo, same thing. Jota is kind of unreliable. You can't rely on Jota and Nunes to score the goals. Like, Nunes is not like how he was under Jurgen Klopp. Same thing for Jota, and that's the reason why Slot wants to get rid of them. That midfield, if you look at Liverpool's midfield now, you look at Grealish, you look at McAllister, you look at that midfield, that midfield is immense, absolutely immense. That is, and not forgetting Slobozai, Slobozai, Grealish, and McAllister are the reason too, because they don't overspend the money. They went to Brighton and brought McAllister in, who's been one of the best central midfielders this season. Real shame he didn't play at the end of the season, but I can understand that Ernst Slot wanted to rest him and say, well, let him be rested for next season and let him be ready. But they won it because of the winning mentality, because of Ernst Slot's mentality to win and to really show teams like Arsenal, who will never win the Premier League because they are a bottle job club and their fan base. Don't get me started on their fan base, but
sorry, Cornell. Let's get to the other teams one by one, if you don't mind. So, just before we move to Arsenal, I know there's a lot to be said. You'll be pleased to hear from Cornell when it comes to Arsenal, because I follow you next, so I know your comments. But let's listen from Jeroen. So, how happy are you with Chelsea? Not only with the Conference League, but with the fact that you are back to the Champions League. I think there's a lot of merit about going back where the Giants are.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, like Cornell, I wasn't convinced of Maresca when he came in. I was a bit like, what's this going to be? Also, because he has inherited this absolutely massive squad. He's got, I don't know how many players we have out on loan. I can't keep track of the amount of players that are out. We have a huge amount out on loan. But I have to say that, the beginning of the season wasn't bad. And then we had a dip. And then we got better. And, we left it a bit late. But he managed that huge squad. And he also pretty much very quickly decided who was going to be in and who was going to be out. Even if he was going to rotate them, he got rid of some deadwood. Sterling, he's out the door. Good luck to you. Basically started to play another system of football, which in the beginning was quite, nice to watch. But then, towards the middle of the season, he kind of hit a weird spot where he was, playing that classic Italian catenaccio, and we weren't attacking at all. And I was a bit like, man, have you lost the plot here? What's going on? What's going on with Cole Palmer? How come he's not scoring? That kind of thing. But he got it together in the end. He pulled in the squad that he has, and he made them a team, And okay, I know the Conference League, right? Look, we were the big boys in that league. We knew that from the start. Yes, we were the favourites to win it, but we still won it in the end. You can be favourites and you can fall out halfway. But we didn't. So, okay, Conference League for a lot of teams is not a lot. But for us, it meant something because, under Poch, we didn't have any chances really in Europe. And we haven't had that for a while. So for us, it was a big deal. And to finish fourth and to win the Conference League and to ensure Champions League football next year. And now I hear that there's up to 14 players on their way out. And we've already bought, Liam Delap, player that everybody's been looking at. And somehow, and I didn't see that coming at all, we managed to get him. We need a striker. Nkunku hasn't worked out. I don't know why, because he was amazing in the Bundesliga, but Liam Delap is going to be a good player, I think, good young players. And we have some serious young players. Caicedo is another one who's played absolutely brilliantly this year. But look, as Chelsea fans, we're happy to be back around the top four where we want to be. Obviously, we'd like to get better next year. Champions League football means a lot. And now hopefully we can control the size of that squad. We need to sell some more players. Maybe not buy directly, but we do need to sell some players and get him a starting 11 that he's going to be happy with and get him going. But look, I'm delighted, to be honest with you, because I never saw top four at the beginning of the season. New manager, he was at Leicester City before. Yes, he's worked under Pep, but it doesn't mean that if he becomes the head coach that he can bring that through. But look, in the end, he pulled through and he won us the first competition that we've won in a while. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy. And it's been a weird season because I think it's a season for me of underachievers and overachievers. So the Premier League, if you look at the likes of Man U, Spurs, right? Big teams flopped, right? Then you look at the likes of Brentford, Crystal Palace winning their first competition in I don't know how long. Newcastle winning their first competition in, I don't know, since the animals could talk. There's been a lot of teams that have really underperformed what they would normally do. And then the other teams have come up and actually, played good football and got really, really good results. And it's been a very strange season. I have to say, for Cornell, I'm delighted that Liverpool won. I'm really happy because they are the best team, and I say team in the traditional sense of the football team. They are the best team in the Premiership. They absolutely deserved it. And it was pretty much a done deal back in sort of March already. Nobody came close to them. Arsenal, they fell apart. City were all over the shop. Nobody challenged them. You could argue that the only people who actually challenged them for a period of this season was another team who was massively overdone, which is Nottingham Forest. Incredible. Like they were maybe the only serious challenge because Arsenal, you knew they were going to bottle it.
Of course they were. Yeah, of course. What I mean? I knew from a fact that as soon as Saka actually got injured and they got the injuries, I knew that this was an advantage that Liverpool could take. And thank you for bigging up, Liverpool on winning the Premier League for a second time and leveling with Manchester United, because Liverpool really deserve it because of the hard work that Liverpool's put in. I mean, look, I'm not saying that Chelsea ain't going to be challengers at some point. I mean, look, you've signed Liam Delap. That's a brilliant move. And then, of course, you're going to possibly get that striker from Frankfurt. Could be a possible one. But like I always said, Liverpool worked hard for that Premier League title because of the players and the winning mentality that Ern Slot put into that team. And, obviously, I'm still confident that Wirtz is going to be a Liverpool player, which looks likely he's going to be, and whoever else Slot wants to put in. And I think Liverpool is going to dominate for a very, very long time and win as much trophies as they can under Ern Slot.
You also have as well, Cornell, like you said it yourself, you probably have some of the best players in their position, not just in the Premiership, but in the world. So Alisson can't be touched. I mean, look at Queven Keller, brilliant goalkeeper. He's gone to Brentford now because he can't get into the Liverpool side. You've got like some players there where you're kind of going, wow. Gravenbach, he changed him. So Slot changed him how he plays. One of the best midfielders around. There's, from 1 to 11, you're kind of going, some of these players are world class and they work hard and they have that team mentality. So fair play to them, and they deserve it.
Let's talk about Arsenal. So I think this season, or the season that just came to an end, they could smell the title, at least at the beginning. They could smell the trophy. There was some hope, okay? And same applies to Champions League. If I remember well, they got to quarterfinal. They were the only English team there, and they fought. And most Sharks were already knocked out. So there was an avenue for Arsenal to lift the trophy, but again, they failed. What's wrong with Arsenal, Cornell?
What's really wrong with Arsenal? Well, number one, they're a butter job club. They haven't won a title for 21 years, and next season is going to be 22 years that they haven't won a title. They haven't won a title from since 2003, 2004. They had never won the Champions League. The last time they won they were in a Champions League final was against Barcelona in 2006, and they haven't won it since then. Since Jens Lehmann got sent off and Sol Campbell, everything just changed for Arsenal. Arsenal, look, listen. I ain't saying that the football that they play is fantastic. Yeah, Saka is brilliant as well. David De Gea, obviously, brilliant goalkeeper who came from Brentford to go to Arsenal. They're obviously set to go and sign Kepa, which obviously, you know, is a kind of interesting transfer from Bournemouth, even though he wasn't that great at Chelsea, to be fair. Honestly, to be honest, he sucked at Chelsea, but went on to Bournemouth and did decently there. But I'll be very interested to see what Kepa does for Arsenal and if he can push out David De Gea out of goal. But Arsenal, look, the thing is about Arsenal is that they play good football, like I said. Don't get me wrong, and they always like to hype it up and they do this every season. Like if they're top, they always say, "Oh yeah, they're the best team in the world. They're the biggest club in the world. They're this, they're that." No, you're not. I mean, Manchester United has been more successful than Arsenal. They've won more trophies than Arsenal. Arsenal, when they were on Arsene Wenger, yeah, they were invincible. They had the squad many years ago when Arsene Wenger was there. Everything was Arsenal. They had Perez, they had Bergkamp, they had Henry, they had every bit of that, and they were dominating. And everybody was asking the question: how can you stop Arsenal? How can Arsenal be stopped right now? Right now, I look at this Arsenal team, and they are not the same team as they were when they were invincible.
No.
And for me personally, I think their fan base need to stop being too uppity. They need to stop being too delusional, was the word I was supposed to say, and just accept that Arsenal are not good enough. And it's true. I mean, they talk about Liverpool doing that. They don't need to worry about the other teams. They need to worry about themselves and try and convince Arteta that they are good enough to play in that Arsenal team. So until Arsenal go and sign players, they haven't signed any players as yet because all Man City, Man United, Liverpool have made moves. Yeah, Chelsea's made moves. Arsenal are the only team that haven't made moves. Yeah, of course, the transfer window has just opened. Obviously, it's going to close, on the 10th. Obviously, because it's a 10-day period, which due to the FIFA Club World Cup. But again, Arsenal are just not good enough, and they realized when the injuries came, they knew that the title was slipping away. I mean, look, if Saka was injury free and they had all their players away from injury, I believe that they would have obviously pushed on and found a way to go and win the title and really prove to everyone that they are the club that they say they are. But I just think like all these Arsenal fans are just all talk, and I just feel like Arsenal just need to calm down a bit and just realize, they're living in Liverpool's shadow and they're living in Man City's shadow too. But for me personally, I'm being funny. I'm not keen on Arsenal. I ain't keen on them because every time they come up with some signing that they say they're gonna go and get, like they all think they're gonna get Martin Zebedee, from Real Sociedad. That looks like it's gonna fall through. They want to get Kirkeres. That ain't gonna happen. They want Isaac. Is any player gonna go to Arsenal? Because they're gonna look at Arsenal and say, look, why would I want to go to Arsenal? And Arsenal are not winning any trophies. They went this season with no trophies, none whatsoever. They had to watch Manchester City lose their trophy, obviously, because they all thought they were going to go on and win the FA Cup. They had to watch Liverpool win the Premier League. fully because they fully deserve it. So Arsenal went trophyless this season with all the boasting they were doing, everything about that. But for me personally, I just feel Arsenal ain't gonna win no trophies next season. And I think, I'm sorry, but Liverpool's winning that Premier League title again, not Arsenal.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's totally right. I think there's a couple of things for me where Arsenal have been going wrong for a long time. And one is in their midfield. Declan Rice is a very good player. I'll give you that. That's no problem. But Arsenal need a tough midfielder in the mold of Vieira. And I know that doesn't really exist anymore, but they need that type of midfielder. They don't have it. They also lack a striker. They had Mikel Merino playing as a striker for half the season, and the dude has never played striker ever in his life. Now, fair enough, he was lucky and he scored a few goals here and there and whatever else, but they have no striker. So, how can you score goals without a striker? Doesn't make any sense. And also, like in my estimation, Arteta has tried to make them more defensive-minded, which probably was needed, and also more learning from scoring from corners and free kicks and all that kind of stuff. Brilliant. But the other thing that Arsenal do all the time, which annoys me, and it must even annoy Arsenal fans, is that they want to score the most wonderful goal in the world. They don't believe in tap-ins or, at the end of the day, goal is a goal. And that's it. And I just think that they have this kind of thing. They have to score the most amazing goal. And so they take 5 more touches to score the most amazing goal and then completely bottle it. And I do think that they have a serious lack of quality in players that other teams have. And they lack a bit of bite about them. A player who's going to get stuck in and look for ball, like McAllister does for Liverpool. Absolute classic example of it. Caicedo does it for Chelsea. He's going to get stuck in. He's going to take that ball. Arsenal don't have one player, not one in the whole team where you can go, that guy is the guy who's going to be a bit tough. They don't look like that at all to me. And so therefore, like Mel said, they're just not going to win anything like that.
I definitely agree with you on that point. They this season just finished. Their objective was to go into the transfer window and go and buy, but it's the same thing. And I'm seeing shades of Arsene Wenger in Mikel Arteta. Like he's being too stubborn going into the transfer window and saying, well, okay, I need to get a striker. If I want to go and catch Liverpool, which they didn't, then he needs to go and get a striker. They need to get a midfield because, look, Declan Rice is happy playing where he is, but they haven't got that sort of Vieira sort of player to basically say, oh yeah, get defenders, hurt them, find ways to show that quality. They haven't got that. And that's the reason why they are lacking. And that's the reason why they're not winning trophies, because they haven't got certain players that Man City's got, Chelsea's got, Liverpool's got, Manchester United has got, any of the teams in the Premier League. They haven't got that sort of thing. And then they always think that they are a big club. You're not a big club. You've won multiple FA Cups. They've won, multiple Community Shields. But that doesn't mean anything. Their thing that's really making them tick is that they can't find a way to win the Premier League, and that's the reason why they are deluded to that, and that's the reason why other teams are one step ahead, because they buy players that suit their team and that will bring them success and bring them joy. Arsenal haven't got any of those. So until Arsenal get a striker, until Arsenal get a midfielder or certain quality of players to suit their team, I think more misery is coming for them next season.
I would agree with that. And I think they have no leaders. They have no leaders on the pitch. There isn't one player. And that's been for 4 or 5 years, to be honest with you. There isn't. I can't even name the Arsenal captain right now. Because there's that much of a lack of leadership there that you're just going, okay, it's Odegaard, I know that, but I just don't think he's a leader. And I don't think any of the Arsenal players are leaders. They have literally no leaders. You need a leader. That's it. you know.
Now let's jump to another team that is on the rise, and I think they're going to be playing the champions for the second time in 3 years, which is remarkable, and that is Newcastle, which I know is close to your heart, Jeroen, as you just referred at the beginning. I think they had, let's say, in their own scale, a similar season to Chelsea, the fact that they lift the trophy and they qualify to Champions League. So is that a boost for Newcastle to keep going up?
It's a huge boost for Newcastle, right? For them to win a piece of silverware this year is a massive boost for Newcastle, right? And I think one of the best managers around, and certainly the best English manager around, is Eddie Howe. And I think Newcastle have been quite clever. They've got the biggest amount of, like their owners are the richest. They're like one of the richest owners in the world. They've got like serious money, right? But they've been clever. They bought players who fit what Eddie Howe wants. They haven't necessarily gone out, okay, Isak. When Isak came in, like people were like, who is he even? Look at him now. Everybody wants him, right? They're talking about 150 million or whatever it is. He's turned into a world-class striker. And he's been very cleverly managed. And that's why I have a lot of respect for Newcastle, because I think that next year they're going to be in or around the top 4. They were very close to it this year. Very, very close. The thing that they have to work on is that, they seem to have certain period in the year where they, the results are not great. I'm not sure, like they play some kind of, I don't know, half team and they end up losing, So, right, they need to be consistent. But I think that Newcastle, you watch Newcastle in the next couple of years, because I think what the owners have shown is they're not willing to throw 100 million after a player. They're willing to go and buy the right player, but they don't, just because they're really wealthy, they don't just go and splash out, do a city on it and buy absolutely everybody, or actually a Chelsea, to be honest with you as well. But, they're clever with who they're buying. And I reckon that next year, you're going to see the fact that they've won silverware this year, the fact that they have actually, for the first time since, I believe it was 1955 when they won their last day, I can't remember, that's going to push them on. And if Eddie Howe stays there, because I think he's key to it, Isak does look like he's going to go, but they have some very, very good players, and I think that they're going to grow. And because of the experience in the Champions League, when they were in it last, which is quite recently as well, they are now going to start aiming for Champions League. And I don't think there's many teams in Europe that would like to go and play against Newcastle at St. James's Park. I really don't. Like they're a tough team, and they play well, and they have a serious fan base. So watch them grow. And when the big owners came in, and you're kind of going, oh, it's loads of money, and they're going to just do a city on it, and they're going to buy everybody. And no, they haven't done that at all. They've been very wise with who they bought. Tonali came in, midfield, good, decent player. Okay, he had his problems with the betting ban and all that kind of stuff, but who they bought, they've been pretty clever about. And they got rid of a lot of deadwood. And I think that they will continue to do that. As long as they all hold on to Eddie Howe, they're going to be in or around the top 4 for sure for the next couple of years.
The other team that was remarkable this season was Crystal Palace. Like, I think not many of us would put money on Crystal Palace to win the FA Cup, and they won it, and they beat City in Wembley. And City was very interested in the trophy, given that the Premier League went to Liverpool, Champions League went to PSG, so that FA Cup meant a lot to City. But at the end of the day, it was Palace who was lifting it in Wembley. What are the prospects for Crystal Palace after winning the FA Cup, Cornell? And I know they're having some issue around playing in the European competitions. I don't know exactly where are those issues at the moment, but maybe you can let us know.
Crystal Palace have been a massive highlight this season in the Premier League. Eze has been absolutely unstoppable to watch. Mateta has been brilliant to watch with his goals. Yeah, they have just the way that Gazner has just set them up is just unbelievable. They've just really been the huge underdogs of the Premier League. They've shown the quality and the class that they are as a team. You've got Dean Henderson, very good goalkeeper, who's been going in and out of the England team. And this is why Crystal Palace, I think, will be ones to watch this year. And I think if they really bring in the right players at the right time, which obviously Gazner is going to do, and going to make sure that they are continuing as underdogs, then I think that Crystal Palace, I think, will be really ones to watch. I mean, as far as their UEFA, their European football goals, I mean, I'll be devastated if they don't play European football. I'll be very devastated. But I mean, whatever happens, I think they can still be proud of their season. They've had a very fantastic season. They shocked everybody by going further, even though we all felt that maybe they wouldn't have made it into the FA Cup final, because you always think when you're playing against Manchester City, it's always a difficult opposition to play against. But they beat the odds, and didn't matter if it was a small team, didn't even matter if it was a big team. They showed them that they can play the quality football that Gazner has really got them to wanting them to play, and that's why Crystal Palace are the talk of are the team that everybody's talking about. And I'll be very interested to see how they strengthen. I mean, the biggest worry I think will be keeping hold of Eze, because I think Tottenham will be looking at him now, especially with their who they're going to bring in, and also I think Mentetta as well, to keep that scoring mentality going as well. And they've got Adam Warderton as well, who's also looking to probably could be going out the door as well too. But look, Crystal Palace have just been amazing to watch this season in the Premier League. They've always shown their heart, their heart and soul, their grit, their desire. They'll never back down, even if they're a goal down or 2 goals down. They'll always show their quality on the pitch, and that's the reason why the Crystal Palace fans have been entertained with the football that Glasner has been playing. And I think Glasner will try and bring his own players in this summer, but he'll bring in ones that he feels that want to play for the shirt and play for the club. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Crystal Palace do.
Now, on the other side of the house, we have teams that disappointed their fan base. And let's start with one that we all expect to do well, given the resources they have, the coach that is leading the team from the bench, and we know how vocal he is on the dressing room. I'm talking about Pep and City. So, Jeroen, can you do an assessment of the Man City season and try to understand the rationales for such favor?
Well, for me, De Bruyne is key. So De Bruyne, he's a man from Ghent, so he grew up in Ghent. So he's been one of the best players, I think, in the last probably 10 years. Right, he has seriously lost his pace now, and the man is 33, 34. That's key. Losing, is it Rodri? I'm pretty sure they lost Rodri at the start of the season as well. Another world-class player. Haaland, last year he was on fire. But basically what City did, in my eyes, was that they built everything about Haaland, right? So get the ball to Haaland, he will score, right? And they basically, Haaland then had a season that just wasn't Haaland, right? And if you built a full team around one player, and that player then gets injured and he's out for a long time, and then his form hits rock bottom, then you have a problem. And I think Pep basically built everything around him. He was like, right, just get it up to the big guy. He's going to be able to score. And yeah, last season he was scoring for fun. But the whole team was built around him. And the minute he fell away, it started to fall apart. And De Bruyne falling away at the same time, and Rodri then out as well. So you had some seriously big players falling off in form, getting injured, that kind of thing. And also, I have to say, Pep, like for me, right, he's a good manager, but he's always managed his way by buying players, right? And that's the way he's always done. But for me, he really showed that his limitations are there to be seen. He couldn't find a solution for it. He could not find a solution for it. He has Phil Foden, who is a really brilliant midfielder, and a couple of years ago was scoring for fun. He wasn't even getting on the pitch. Jack Grealish, £100 million flop, absolutely useless. He just couldn't figure it out. He was like, what's going on? As opposed to going, oh, I built a team about one player, right? Now that player is out. Instead of, a good manager is going to say, right, my main player is out. Other players have to stand up, and I'm going to put other players into the positions to make sure that they're doing the scoring. He just seemed to be flapping around all season and not able to make a decision and playing like stupid formations. Like he's been playing defenders in midfield, and like he absolutely loves to confuse people, and people are going, what's the goalie doing up as a striker? Oh, it's a Pep club. Oh yeah, I forgot that's going to happen. He does this just to, and then it goes wrong, and then he can't pull it together. And this season, he really showed that he is human and he has a lot of limitations. And I think that was part of it. He had lots of injuries. He built a team around one player who was brilliant, yeah, but when fell away, they didn't have a replacement for him. And then in January, he went and bought all these, it was like Chelsea 2 years ago. Oh, quick, that guy is interesting, some club. Let's go buy him for 90 million. Okay, fair enough. He was panicking this year. He really was. In my estimation, he had no control of it, didn't know what was going on. Liverpool were flying, and he had no way of catching them. And they had some very, very poor results. Very poor results because of all that. That's what happened City, I think. You can't spend your way to win it. You have to be a team. And they are not a team. Simple. They're a group of individuals, very highly paid individuals, and the team is built on Haaland. And if Haaland goes down, which he did this season, finished.
Yeah. Still in Manchester, now moving to Old Trafford, Cornell. I know you also like to talk about United again. Then there are no secrets about it for those who follow your X account. So there was some expectation built around Amorim, but I think these expectations weren't met. Is there a reason for it? Does the man needs more time, or this team is just at the moment a coach cemetery?
I think for me, in my opinion, I think this team, this Manchester United team, and Ruben Alterim is just an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess. Like, prime example, when Manchester United played against Tottenham in the Europa League final, Ruben Alterim put out the wrong team. He didn't change it. Like when Manchester United was 1-0 down in the Europa League against Spurs, yeah, and at half-time, most of all those Manchester United fans were asking and were shouting out for him to change it. Put Garnacho on. Put this player on. He didn't do any of those. Then he was playing a formation that is not working with the players, and it's not making the players feel, well, okay, they can play at that formation. They could do that. They can, play how they want to play. It wasn't working, and it hasn't been working. Manchester United have had so many managers over the years. The best manager out of Manchester United was Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah. If that was Sir Alex Ferguson would have known his best 11. He would have made sure that he put in his best starting 11. He would have made changes at halftime and say, you know what? We might be 1-0 down, but we will still strike back and we will give everything we got and try and find a way to win. Yeah. Ruben Alterim doesn't know his starting 11. He doesn't know what formation he wants to play, how he wants to line them up. It's okay you're saying, well, you're bringing in Kuna, yeah? You want to bring Bob Wemo. Obviously, he could go the other way. His move to Man United could be even hijacked, yeah? Obviously. But when you are a manager, it doesn't matter if it's a big club, it don't matter if it's a small club, you need to know what you're doing. And Ruben Otterin does not know what he's doing. Like at the end of this season in the Premier League, he stood in front of all of those Manchester United fans and he had to apologize and said he was sorry. Yeah, that he was sorry for how the season went. It is his fault that they are where they are, right? They just about survived relegation, because if they didn't look well, they would be the first big Premier League club to be relegated from the Premier League. And all those big players don't want to be playing Championship football. They want to be playing Premier League football to really keep their high hopes up. But Manchester United, for me, and I'm not being funny, I mean, look, they are the team that we all, as you know, as Premier League followers, always feared. And even when whatever team you put in front of Manchester United, you always think, oh my days, I think the players that they got, we feared them. We don't want to be playing against them. Because you know that Manchester United will always dominate, and they were always dominating back in the day. Even when Arsene Wenger was there, even when Jose Mourinho came on, burst onto the scene, everything was Manchester United, everything. And no one didn't want to be playing against Man United, and everybody was moaning and complaining, saying, how is Manchester United winning trophies? How are they winning Champions League trophies? How are they winning FA Cups? How are they winning Carabao Cups? How are they doing it? It's because of their winning mentality again. And that was instilled by Sir Alex Ferguson, because Alex Ferguson got the best out of Manchester United. He made them into the team that they are. But every time you look at Ruben Otterin right now, yeah, it's all right. You can sit down and say, yeah, give him time to do this. But if he doesn't nail it, like say, for example, if obviously Cunha's gone there, yeah, that's a good, decent signing there. Obviously, personal terms have been agreed with Wemo. Obviously, he could change his mind and go to another club if he wants to. Obviously, they want Kirkeres. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, they want to raise it up a little bit. Yeah, but the players they have, it's not good enough in that team. I mean, you got Rashford. Who obviously is not good enough for Manchester United. You've got Haaland in there, who completely sucks in that team. You've got certain players in there that are wearing the shirt, but they're not playing for the club because of the way Ruben Otterin has them and how he lines them up. He has Onana, who everybody was like hyping up so much. Oh yeah, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Ever since David De Gea left, they all thought that Onana was going to be something else. Now they want Martinez from Aston Villa. Is that going to work? I do not know. It's a different scenario. But for me personally, Manchester United have just gone down the drain. So until they can fix, and bring in the right players at the right time to really get Manchester United back on track and say, you know what, let them challenge for a title. Let them challenge for an FA Cup, challenge for a Carabao Cup. More misery is coming for Manchester United. So from a certain point of view. And I think Ruben Otterin, if he does not get his starting 11 right, if he doesn't know his starting 11, he needs to go. And you would obviously bring in Sir Alex Ferguson out of retirement and let him do what he's got to do. Because if he was to come out of retirement right now, I'm sorry, Manchester United would be back on track as they were all those years ago when they were dominant.
I just think as well, Cornell, aren't you guys lucky that you didn't get Ruben Amorim? Like, there was a lot of talk before Slot signed that Amorim was going to Pool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'd say the Pool fans are delighted. They're like, woohoo! Like, Amorim, he's a good manager in a certain style, right? But the question that I ask you, and I asked this of a Manchester United fan not too long ago, and he actually looked at me with a pained expression on his face going, yeah, I don't get it. So, Anthony, he goes to Real Betis. He turns into a world-class player again, right?
Yeah.
Jadon Sancho comes to Chelsea, right? Very few games, but plays really well, does very well. Rashford, Villa, another player that couldn't play in Man United, plays very well for Villa, right? Every single player that has come in to Man United for the last 10 years has been an expensive flop, right? And that's before Amorim, that's before all of those, right? They come in and they're on big price and all this kind of stuff, and they've just been absolute muck. And quite a few of them, when they leave Man United, suddenly turn into these world-class players again. Anthony at Betis, the other players were saying, we're going to kidnap Anthony to keep him because he's been playing brilliantly. Like, he's been scoring goals for fun. And, you know, I was worried in the Conference League final because I was like, right, this Betis team under Pellegrini and with Anthony and all that kind of stuff. But so the question I have is, there's a culture of Man United, and that culture is toxic. There isn't one player, not one, in 10 years who's come in there and improved that squad. They have disimproved the squad. And I was talking about being a team earlier on. Those guys are the least team football team in the Premiership. The very least. You know, if you look at Harry Maguire, who has turned into this world-class star. Harry Maguire he's useless. And he's the best player they have at the moment. Wow, that's bad. And like you said, Cornell, if it wasn't for the fact that Southampton were so muck, Leicester were so muck, right? Yeah. Man United would have been relegated this year. 100%. They were so bad. They couldn't play their way out of a paper bag. They're just crap. Like, absolute crap. And it's top to bottom. There isn't one player there, not one, that I would consider for the Chelsea B team. You know, like, no way. You know, it's amazing. And that's another team massively, massively underachieved this year. Yeah. Like, they went to Malaysia on a tour, the big tour at the end of the season to get some sort of feel good. And they got beaten by 11 Malaysian lads. Malaysian lads. What? Do you know what I mean?
Like the season wasn't enough, no?
I saw that and I was like, how can you lose to a Malaysian team and then go and beat a Hong Kong team? I don't understand. It's the same thing. Ruben Otterim just does not know he's starting 11. And if they don't look well, I think they're going to be the first team to be relegated.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And, you know, I don't see it changing unless they could change the whole culture and literally change all the players. I don't see it changing. I see a lot of pain and suffering coming.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah. The other one that we have here that also struggled in the Premier League but ended up winning the Europa League is Spurs. So I'll be interested... I'm interested, Jeroen, in your assessment of Spurs' season, given that they finished just above the relegation, but they won the Europa League, so there is this sweet and sour taste.
I think they're another mess of a club, an absolute mess of a club. And I mean, okay, granted, they're a big rival of Chelsea, so you know, but they're a real mess of a club. And Postecoglou comes in there. He's done brilliantly with Celtic. Comes in there, loses Harry Kane. They basically, the players they bought in were pretty rubbish, you know. And from what I'm reading as well, he lost the players probably about 4 or 5 months ago. He lost the respect of the squad. The minute you lose the respect of the squad, you're gone, you know. And the squad saw him as the guy who came from Celtic, the guy who came from the Australian League, the guy who came from the Japanese League. He's not a big manager, you know, but they've had big managers before and they've gone absolutely nowhere either, you know. Under Mourinho, they did nothing, you know, under Conte, nothing. So they are a real mess of a club, an unbelievable mess of a club. And the players they have, again, they are just not up to the quality of what the Premiership is about. And I actually feel sorry for Ange because I think he's a decent manager, and he's actually kind of a little bit of an old school manager in terms of he just says like it is, you know. He's got that Australian brashness, like whatever it is. But I just think that they are a mess of a club, an absolute mess. They haven't got one player. Son, even I wouldn't touch any of the players in Spurs. Like Man United, they just have no team mentality. They have no togetherness. Yes, they won in the end the Europa League, but they practically got relegated from the Premiership, and they are a team like Man United who are going to be facing a lot of pain because they're going to come in with another manager, the fifth manager in 6 years. They've just won their first silverware in 17 years. What do? They fire the guy straight away. Now, granted, he's lost the squad. When a manager loses a squad, his days are numbered anyway. And especially with, an owner like Levi, but they have a total mess of a club and players who are just not fit to wear the shirt. And honestly, I think that Spurs are about that stadium. That stadium cost them a fortune, right? It makes them a lot of money. That's not football, right? It's not for me. So I think that they're going to face a lot of years of struggle, and they probably will get relegated next year as well if they don't do something. They literally have to sort out their whole shed of players. Get rid.
Right. So let's move now outside of the Premier, but still in England. So I know, Cornell, you follow with a lot of attention the Championship, the League One, your local team, Lincoln. So maybe you can give us an overview of what happened and share a couple of insights.
So obviously the playoffs took place. Obviously Charlton have been promoted to the Championship, which they worked very hard for. They beat Leyton Orient in the League One playoff final. Obviously Sunderland got promoted in the Championship from Championship to Premier League, which will be very interesting to see how they do as well, even though they've been linked with Jordan Henderson to make a return there. And Joe Bellingham obviously is on his way to Borussia Dortmund now. So, he's following in his brother's footsteps, which I'm very, very pleased for him because Joe Bellingham is going to be a huge star, in the Borussia Dortmund team, just like how Job is right now. So League One, obviously, us Lincoln City, we finished mid-table, which we did. Respectively, even though we was in the top 3, top 4, top 6, at the first half of the season, but injuries haven't really worked and hasn't really gone the way I would have expected. But obviously, next season is Lincoln City's time to be promoted and to end the 64-year wait of being promoted to the Championship to play Championship football. But as I say, League One obviously was very, very strong this season, just finished. Birmingham won it, this season, respectively. They were the best team, especially with the money that they have. Wrexham getting automatic promotion, which, obviously Wrexham want to be in the Premier League. Of course, that is their aim, to be there. I think they'll probably go on and achieve it and stuff. So, Stockport came unlucky not to do so well, but they went out. Wickham, the same thing. Now, obviously, I look at League One for the new season, and it looks like a weaker team. Luton Town obviously got relegated, and Plymouth is down in League One now. So, you've got Bradford that's in there now that's made their promotion from League Two to League One. So there is a lot of competition, but I think this is an opportunity for Lincoln City to really go on and show what they're worth. I mean, look, the transfer window, like I said, is open for a couple of days, and then after that it closes and then it reopens again. I mean, obviously, look, Cornell would like to see Lincoln City win it. I would like to see Michael Scobala, a head coach that was under the reins at Leeds United as and was a PE teacher many years ago, and really achieved greatness and knows absolute futsal football, how to get the best out of players and young talents. That is what Lincoln City is. I do remember reading a League of Ireland, article on which players that I would like to see Lincoln City sign. And the first person that obviously came to me was Brendan Kavanagh. I would love to see Brendan Kavanagh sign at Lincoln from like St. Pat's. Don't get me wrong. Josh Houlihan obviously got picked to represent Ireland in the international week this week against Senegal. Obviously didn't play yet, but probably will play the next game. I would like to see Josh Houlihan sign at Lincoln, and I think he would be an absolute. I mean, it would be way too good, but that's the theory of League of Ireland players coming from the League of Ireland and going into the EFL because there's wicked talents in the League of Ireland, and it cannot be underestimated, even though some people would think it's a farmers league, which it isn't. But anyone that says that they've never watched the League of Ireland, so that is that. But like I said, League Two and League One and the Championship is going to be very, very competitive. I think Sheffield United are going to be ones to watch out for next season, because Sheffield United was so unlucky not to win against Sunderland. They lost out. VAR wasn't nice to them, to be honest. Really went against them, and I think they'll be ones to look out for. Obviously, Leeds will be in the Premier League, so they won't be in the Championship. I think there's going to Middlesbrough. I think will be up for it as well. I think they'll get promoted through the playoffs. I think. I mean, it was a bit harsh to sack Michael Carrick, because I think Michael Carrick did very well with them. But one thing I do understand is that I think it's going to be very competitive in the Championship. League One is the same. League Two is the same as well. So I'm looking forward to it. So let's wait and see what the new season holds.
Cool. So let's move now to the European competition. Start with the Conference League. I know you already touched base briefly on it, but I would like Jeroen just to let me know. I really appreciate that you said that you guys were the big boys, you guys were the favorites, but that's not enough. Like, you need to prove it on the pitch.
Yeah.
It's not just show up and everyone is saying that I'm going to win, so that is going to happen. No, you need to make it a reality. And fair play for Chelsea to deliver that to the fans. So well done. Were you happier with the Conference League or with Chelsea qualifying to the Champions? I say you need to pick one. What would you prefer?
Right. So, I mean, let's be honest. I want Chelsea to qualify for the Champions League. That's for sure. The fact that we made position 4 on the last day, I know we left it to the last minute, but I'm delighted with that. I'd rather see them get into 4th in the Premiership than to win the Conference League. The Conference League was like a nice bonus. I'm delighted that they won the Conference League, even though they were the big boys in there. But like you said, they have to still play. They have to still win the game, and they did. And I'm delighted that we also have some silverware. And the fact that they're qualified for the Champions League, but that I prefer that they get to the 4th position, which is what they did in the end. And especially when you consider the last couple of days of the Premiership, the action was around 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. 1st, 2nd, pretty much 3rd were already sorted. There was 4 or 5 teams that were on 3 points from each other, and so the fact that we got into that 4th position with that competition around us, that makes me happy. That is, I'm not going to say we're back. We're not. But I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see us qualifying for the Champions League, which is where I think we should be. But qualifying for the Champions League, not like Spurs have done it, which is they won the Europa Cup, whatever, but to do it actually in the Premiership. I prefer to see that, and I think probably most Chelsea fans would probably be of the same opinion. It means that you can look back at the season and you can go, that's a decent season. Okay, could have been better, but that's a decent season from a manager who's for the first time, the head coach in a club like Chelsea, who's come from Leicester City. You're kind of going, yeah, that's a decent season. That's not bad at all. But yeah, I'd prefer to go to 4th position and actually prove that qualification, not winning some, let's be honest, the Mickey Mouse Cup. Do you know what I mean? I'm delighted to win the Mickey Mouse Cup. Don't worry about it. But I would rather see us qualify by actually, being 4th in the Premier.
Moving to another cup, talking about a team that we already discussed in detail, because there's a lot to be said. Europa League, so we end up in Spurs' hands. Do you think, Cornell, that winning the Europa League wasn't enough for Ange, and he should have been sent out, or Levy should have been a bit more patient?
I think from what I've gathered is that I think the Europa League wasn't really enough. Really, I mean, look, Spurs hasn't won a European trophy for over 17 years. They ended the 17-year wait of winning the Europa League. Yes, that is their fantastic achievement, and they can prove that they've had a better season than Arsenal and Manchester United, for a prime example. I think if you look at it from a certain point of view, in the Premier League, they haven't had the best of seasons, and they know that Spurs haven't been good enough in the Premier League. Ange Postecoglou has not been good enough in the Premier League. He has proven, yes, of course, he came from Celtic to come to Spurs. That is a big jump. And obviously the players that he wants, obviously he couldn't get them. Daniel Levy, I mean, look, I think there's going to be questions going to be asked about him. Spurs as a club, where do they go? Where do they go from here? Are they going to be challenging for titles? Because since Kane's gone and achieving greatness in the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, Son has been the only one that has been bossing it. Dominic Solanke, another striker that obviously came from Bournemouth to go to Tottenham. Since he's been injured, they haven't been their absolute self. Richarlison, I don't know what possessed Tottenham to go and sign Richarlison, because I don't see nothing in Richarlison. Richarlison was scoring goals for Spurs and everything for Everton, and everything was going well for him. Since he moved from Everton to go to Tottenham, he has been an absolute flop. I don't know what possessed them to sign him. They need to sign proper players. Son looks like he's on his way out. If they lose, Son is not going to be around a team that is not challenging for trophies. The only reason that they bossed it or whatever was because of Son and because of Maddison. Yeah, Maddison is too injury prone. I think they need to go and get another central attacking midfielder that they can rely on, because they cannot be waiting around for Maddison. They cannot be relying on Son, who is breaking his neck for the team and really putting himself out there. And the players from top to bottom are just not working. Until something changes, until they can get some proper players, there is misery after misery. Then losing twice to Arsenal, home and away, that's not worked. Ange Postecoglou is putting players in similar positions and thinking, well, why are you playing that person in defense? Why are you not playing them in the position that they can excel themselves and really be fluent? That's the question that Ange Postecoglou has to really answer. Yes, he got sacked, and everyone would probably think, well, that's a bit harsh. Maybe they could have kept him. But I think if they had kept him, I think more misery would have came. Now, Thomas Frank of Brentford is looking set to take the job, right? Thomas Frank, a manager that has really achieved greatness with Brentford. You know, he helped Brentford to get promoted. He knows his starting 11. He knows his formation that he wants to line them up, and he will get the best out of them. Not have them certain players sprint for so long, and then that's how injuries start creeping up. Thomas Frank will look at that team and say, what players does he feel that would suit Spurs? He will look at that and say, look, I would probably want to get Mbeumo, even though Mbeumo looks probably likely to go Man United, but Spurs will probably still try and hijack it. Wizard, I mean, looks likely. They would look at him and probably try and bring him in. They'll bring a few players from Brentford, which Thomas Frank will do. But Thomas Frank, with his managerial correct record, he has really shown that he is an elite manager right now. And I think bringing Thomas Frank into Spurs I think will really do a lot of great. Like we can all sit down here and say, yeah, Maresca at Chelsea was the same thing, but look how that turned out, and look at the success that Maresca's brought to Chelsea. But Spurs under Thomas Frank, I think will be a different team. I think they'll play much better fluent football than they probably did under Ange. Yeah, it wasn't working. And I think Ange will look at that and say, well, where is it he could have done better? Where is it he could have improved on as a manager and really try and get the best out of them players. But I think Thomas Frank is going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Thomas Frank will do.
Champions League. So PSG after a long period of waiting, after investing massively, after raising the expectations to the fans and not meeting what they could have achieved, given that they had the likes of Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar. After all that, they are now the European champions. Who would have said that? I think most of us wouldn't put our money in PSG.
No.
Whose merit is this? Is it the coach, Luis Enrique, Jeroen?
For me, I think there's two things that have brought PSG that Champions League. Luis Enrique is an unbelievable coach. I think he's probably one of the best coaches in the world. From what I'm reading, he is an absolute football obsessive, right? He literally eats, sleeps, breathes football, right? That's what he does. He came in and he said, I don't want the big stars anymore. I want to go out and buy young, talented, hungry players, right? And I want them to play as a team. And I'll tell you what, right? I would have started the season with a bit of something about PSG. They've spent a lot of money, all of that kind of stuff, right? Hats off to them. They played as an absolute team. I watched not only the final, but, quite a few of their games going through. And the one game when they nearly fell apart was against Villa. And what happened at Villa was that basically their inexperience showed, the youth showed at Villa, because Villa tore them apart in the second half and were very unlucky not to win that game. Now, I think that he went out, he got rid of Mbappe, he got rid of Messi, he got rid of Neymar Jr. He got rid of a load of players that weren't really making the thing. They had big names, but they didn't have anything. He brought in Barcola. He went and got, Dembele, right, who was an absolute flop at Barcelona. Do you know what he did with Dembele at the start of the season? This, I have to say, is brilliant. Dembele was messing. He wasn't pulling his weight, whatever it was. He thought he was the big man. Enrique dropped him. 6 games, dropped him. He comes back and basically Enrique says, you play my way or you can hit the road, right? And Dembele turns into one of the players of the Champions League. Also, the fluidity of that team was incredible to watch. I don't think I've ever seen a team as fluid as PSG. Not all the way through, but once he got his team working the way he wanted to, you had Hakimi, right? Number 2 defender, right? He played more as a number 9 in the last games, and certainly in the Champions League final. The fluidity is incredible. The pace is incredible. He has players who have real pace, and they play as a team. So like I was saying about Liverpool earlier on, right? PSG, for me, are the best team in Europe. And I mean team. The guys who'll go out and fight for each other. The guys who'll go out and, there's not a star man there anymore. Not really, right? You've all these young, hungry, fast players who work in a style that he has developed. So I think part of it is down to his brilliant coaching, right? And the other thing that I think is incredible, that team seemed to work better when they were a goal behind, right? A lot of teams, when they go a goal behind, the heads go down. You know what I mean? like where we've lost the game, they go behind. It's almost like we're going to go play better, and we are going to. So that comes from the coach, and not having a star man, not having the one big name that everybody's like Mbappe, he's the man, and everything like that. So, like I was saying about Haaland earlier on, right? Those three front players were basically the fulcrum for PSG for too long. Enrique said, I don't want any of that. I want none of that. I want young, hungry, quick players. And I think deservedly PSG won the Champions League this year. They blew teams away. Like the final was incredible. Like Inter Milan, I know they're all a bit older and all that kind of stuff, right? But they were made look like geriatrics on the pitch. They couldn't get to the ball. They were just the ball. The match was passing them by. The pace of those guys is incredible, and I think PSG in the next couple of years will be serious contenders to grow. And okay, the French league, that's a joke because they win it every year. It's boring. There's nothing interesting really about the French league because they're so dominant. But you mark my words, next couple of years, the Champions League is going to be their domain. If he stays their coach, 100%. And I'd be scared of any team going up against them because they have always found a solution. They're incredible, and I wouldn't have said this earlier on, but really the best team won the Champions League. And you can't always say that happens. There's been situations, Real Madrid, other teams who've won the Champions League where you're kind of going, they weren't the best team, but they got a fluky result here or there. No, this year, PSG were the best team, 100%, and the best team won, deservedly so,
Okay, now we're going to move to the European leagues. We start with the Scottish League. I also would like to highlight the Scottish Cup because that went to Aberdeen, which is a massive achievement for the Aberdeen lads. I was actually happy to see that. Nothing related to Celtic, because I like to see the underdogs doing well. So I was delighted with Aberdeen winning that cup. And for Celtic is also some massive year because now Celtic has the same number of titles as Rangers. They both have 55, Cornell.
Yeah, absolutely. A fantastic achievement for Celtic. They've always shown their class and their quality as a Scottish Premier League team. They've always dominated and always been one step ahead of Rangers. And when you've got, I think it's thanks to Kasper Schmeichel, brilliant goalkeeper. 10 times better than Joe Hart, to be honest. And especially when you've got Kyogo there as well, you've got Japanese stars in that team who really bring their A game. You've got Kuhn in there, who's also a quality player as well. Callum McGregor as well is another one in that team. Heartbeat of that defensive midfield in there. Celtic winning the Scottish Premiership, they work really hard, and Brendan Rodgers has inherited his own players that he feels that can really make a huge difference for Celtic. Celtic are a team that nobody doesn't want to be playing. They've always been the underdog team. They've always shown their grit. They've always shown determination. Doesn't matter if it's at Celtic Park, doesn't matter if it's away, even in the Champions League, even if they're a goal down or 2 goals down, they'll come back and they'll come back strong. And Brendan Rodgers has looked at that team, and when the Celtic fans heard that Brendan Rodgers would make the return, I think it's fitting that Brendan Rodgers wanted to bring more success to Celtic. They didn't win the Scottish Cup, which was a big blow against Aberdeen. Aberdeen had their number and won on penalties. But when it came to the Scottish Premiership, they had that in mind, and that was the aim of it. Yes, they would have loved to go further in the Champions League. I think they'll do that next season, and etc. But I think, like I said, I think Celtic are destined for more greater things, and I think they'll go on and win the Scottish Premiership again. I think it'll be interesting to see how their rivals Rangers do, especially Russell Martin in power. But Celtic, I think, are not going to be stopped next season.
Talking of underdogs, Jeroen, moving to the Belgian league, I don't remember seeing Saint-Gilloise, I don't know if I pronounced the name correctly, Saint-Gilloise winning it. I know they were very close a couple of times, but this time they didn't disappoint their fan base.
So Union Saint-Gilloise are a team that have been around for a long time, but the guys who own Brighton bought them a couple of years ago, right? And they basically have, so a bit like Strasbourg in France are Chelsea's B team, basically. The Saint-Gilloise are the B team of Brighton, right? So they're running that club very much like Brighton, and they're buying some very good players. The weird thing that happened in Belgium, a little bit like in the Netherlands, so for the whole season, Genk were in the lead, right? So you have Gent and you have Genk, and Genk were hammering everybody, but we have a playoff system in Belgium. The top 6 teams will play each other then twice. So, and they're basically the top 2 teams, only the top 2 teams will play European football. And Genk completely fell apart in the playoffs, like totally fell apart. They couldn't win a game. So Union Saint-Gilloise, they won the playoffs. And to be fair, it was always going to be them or Brugge that were going to win. That was going to be there. But the funny thing is that Genk were so far ahead in the actual, during the league, and then they totally fell apart. Absolutely, totally fell apart. And it's the same as happened in the Netherlands, because Ajax were 9 points ahead with 7 games to play and couldn't win a game for the last 7 games. Totally fell apart, came in second. So what I was saying earlier on about the underdogs and the overachievers this year, Saint-Gilloise, they won about 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, they won the Belgian league. And, already, so they've already been kind of champions, but they're very kind of a new club, they're not, experienced kind of winners of the thing. But nobody saw them winning it this year because they were so far behind in the actual league. But when it came to the playoffs, they played very well. And it's interesting to see around Europe that underdog team coming up and doing well this year. This has been, I think, the best season around Europe in the different leagues, where you're seeing teams that are not the fashionable teams, not the big, spenders or whatever, and they're doing really, really well. And the big boys are not doing so well, like very, very interesting to watch. Marseille in France have been a club that probably have been on the wane for quite a while. Their own fans won't accept that, but they had been on the wane. They bring in De Zerbi, who was at Brighton, of course. He brings in a couple of very, very good players. And, PSG won the league hands down, but Marseille came second. And for them, that was winning the league. They didn't expect in any way that they were going to be near second. So I'm loving seeing all over Europe, seeing teams that, like in Spain as well, like Athletic Bilbao, they finish quite high now I know they have Williams and all that kind of stuff, but they've done really, really well. Again, not a fashionable club, total, underdog club. And I love to see the underdog clubs coming up. It's interesting to watch. But yeah, in Belgium, look, the playoffs, a lot of people like them, a lot of people don't like them, and things can change very quickly in the playoff system. But
are you a fan of the playoffs yourself?
To be honest with you, I kind of like the idea of the playoffs. They play 2 games home and away, all 6 teams that are in the top. And anything can happen. I kind of like the playoffs, but I'm not sure if I'd like to see it in the likes of the Premiership or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe it works in Belgium. It's a smaller league. There's not as many teams in the league. But the playoffs seem to work there, and also you give the fans of the top 6 teams almost a final, a semi-final towards the end of the season. I think that's kind of cool. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it, but what it does do is it can absolutely stir the pot in terms of who's actually winning. And that's the interesting part about it, because just because you're winning the league doesn't mean you're going to win the playoffs. That's where it gets interesting. But obviously in Belgium, the top 2 are playing Europe, and that's always the aim, is to finish top 2, because you want to be playing Europe. That's normal. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know in Portugal, but certainly in France, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, you could say Germany maybe as well. The underdogs have done very well this year, and it's great to see it. There's that kind of competition is coming back. It's interesting to watch again, where you're watching teams that are very unfashionable do well and come through. And it's very interesting to watch again. Because sometimes it gets a bit boring with some of the leagues where you're just going like, it's those top 2 teams. So what? You like to see another team coming up and being in the running for it.
That was for sure the case in Italy. I think most of us wouldn't expect Naples to win the title. I know they have Conte as manager, and he has a record. So, but still, everyone thinks of Juventus or Inter Milan, and maybe Naples, maybe AC Milan is back, but it's just a maybe. And they managed with a lot of pressure, because Inter Milan was always there, smelling the title, but they kept it. And I think Lukaku contributed a lot, and people thought that he was done.
Surprisingly, because for Chelsea he was absolute rubbish, and he's been on loan for 3 or 4 years at different clubs in Italy. So Lukaku was one part of that combination. But for me, the player that really made, and again to my point about United players leaving, right? McTominay left United and became the man at Napoli. Like, he scored for fun. And again, a player that United got rid of. And, nobody would have really been like, oh, McTominay at United, wow, what a player. But at Napoli, he was just unreal. So I think, again, Conte has that. Now, he didn't do it at Spurs, but he has that mentality that he builds a team. He builds a team. And he certainly did that at Napoli. They built a team and played as a team. And, they had some very young, exciting players. Of course, they sold the unpronounceable Georgian to PSG there in January. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. It's just not. But they replaced him, and they come back, and they came back tougher. Now, Napoli is a city which is football mad, and there is one team, and that is Napoli. So in a lot of the, you've got AC, you've got Inter, you've got Roma, you've got Lazio, you've got, in a lot of the big cities in Italy, you've got 2 teams. In Napoli, there is only one team, and they are mental about Napoli. They are absolutely bananas about it. So I'm actually delighted for them. And also because it became quite tight towards the end with Inter and Napoli. One was in the lead, then the other was in the lead, then the other was in the lead. And, I'm delighted to see them, up there. And also, to be honest with you, I'm delighted that Conte's reputation has a little bit been saved. He went to Spurs and it was a mess, And I think he's a brilliant manager. Like, he was brilliant at Chelsea. He was awesome at Chelsea. And I loved seeing him there. But I'd like to see that his reputation has been a bit saved, because when he went to Napoli in the beginning, everybody was like, he's a busted flush. He's finished as a manager. Look at what he did at Spurs. He was a mess. Spurs were a mess, blah, blah, blah. He goes to Napoli, and I think it's 2 Serie A titles in 3 years or something like that. So that that's very impressive.
Yeah. Just let's move to, because it's already more than 90 minutes. Let's move just quickly to the Bundesliga. So finally, Harry Kane managed to win the title. There was so much jokes about it, but it had to happen with Bayern Munich, like sooner or later.
Yeah, that I actually feel sorry for poor old Harry Kane. I think he's an absolutely brilliant player. He scores goals for fun. He scores goals from headers, from, you name it, he could score goals. He was in the Spurs team that basically he was the main man. He goes to the Bundesliga. The first year he goes, it's the first year that Bayern haven't won in I don't know how long, you know what I mean? And I'd say he was probably kind of going, sweet Jesus, here we go again. I've moved to this big club and here we go again, but look, in fairness, he's been scoring for fun this year. And they have now, look, I think that part of the reason that they won so big this year was because they lost it last year, and they lost it by quite a margin. And there's obviously, that's not going to work well in the Bayern mentality that, look, they're serial winners. But what surprised me is that Kompany, who was the Burnley manager, right? He gets picked out to go and manage Bayern Munich. I still don't know how he got that job. Now, apparently, from what I read, he's an excellent manager. But he goes from Burnley and he goes to Bayern Munich, which is a huge step. And yeah, they have Kane firing and all that kind of stuff. And, they've got some serious players there in Munich. But Kane is the man, really. But fair play to Vincent Kompany. He goes in and he's made them a team, and he's gone and won the Bundesliga. That's a big achievement. And to go from being relegated with Burnley and then go to win the Bundesliga, fair play to Kompany. I would say watch this space with Vincent Kompany. I think he is a big manager on the up, right? So you're Xavi Alonso, who's now going to Real Madrid. You're like the kind of that new generation of managers, right? Watch Vincent Kompany. Watch him in the next couple of years, because I think he's going to give some of these guys a run for their money. He's going to be really good, really, really good. And the German league can be a little bit, Munich or Bayern, win it mostly. But, the fact that they lost it last year and lost it convincingly probably was a big G up this year, where it's like, right, we're going to go and win this again. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we need Harry Kane in his later hosen. You know what I mean? That we need to see that. None of the rest of us do, but they needed it.
I just got a note from Cornell that he is not able to rejoin. He had to attend some personal affairs, so we will just finish the two of us.
Yeah,
those things happen. Just in terms of the Dutch league, I already mentioned that one team was overhead, which was Ajax, and then PSV managed to finish first. I think they were like 8 or 9 points behind, or even more. I can't remember, but no one was foreseeing PSV to be the champion this year, let's say 2-3 months back.
No. Ajax were, and you see, Ajax have been for a few years. They've been a kind of I don't know if there's problems there financially or whatever, but I mean, Ajax were the perennial champions, in the Netherlands. That was before, and for a few years they've been on the slide, and this year they suddenly were playing really, really well and were miles ahead of everybody at a certain point in the year, almost to the point where you're kind of going, wow, that's so far ahead, nobody's going to catch them. It's just not possible. And yet they lost. And they last 9 games, or last so many number of games, they just lost every game. They just couldn't win a game. And actually, the coach left by mutual consent. I always love that, by mutual consent. You wonder how mutual it really is. But, and too right, because, to be that far ahead and then to lose to PSV is almost sinful. You can't be that far ahead in the league and then have one of the biggest rivals that you have come and take your position. So obviously he's going to go, but it'll be interesting to watch Ajax in the next couple of years. I think Ajax are a team on the slide. I think it's interesting to watch now. There's quite a few Dutch teams that are not the kind of popular teams that are starting to come up. Obviously, Arne Slot was at Feyenoord before, and he won the Eredivisie there. And Feyenoord hadn't won it in a while, So Feyenoord now suddenly have been champions. PSV, obviously, this year are champions. Ajax in the next couple of years will be an interesting watch. And I think it'll be an interesting watch because they are massively a team on the slide. And, it sort of surprised me this year that they were going to even be sort of champions before they completely fell apart. But I don't know what's going on in that club. There's something wrong there. I don't know, is there a mentality problem? Can they get the right players? I'm not sure. But again, interesting to see other teams coming up and being competitors for them,
Yeah, hope there'll be more of that in the future, and maybe even maybe even the Road Cup or the Euro Cup, among the national teams. To be nice to see some fresh blood winning the big competitions. I don't know, the likes of the Netherlands, for instance, they haven't won for ages. To be nice to see
won for ages, but to be honest with you, Vitor, let's say for the World Cup next year, I think it's Spain. Or not next year, but when it's on, you know what I mean? I think the way Spain play is just wow. And they have serious talent. Their coach is really good. So I'd love to see an underdog team doing well in the European, Cup or in the World Cup. But unfortunately, I think that Spain is going to win absolutely everything. I'm wondering now if they've won against Portugal. I don't know what's going on there. But
that's what I want to say. Portugal is giving them a hard time. I was just checking here in Parva. It's 2-2 now, extra time. There are 12 minutes to go. So everything is possible. I think that I'd say at this point, I'm not watching the game, obviously, but I've seen, knowing the psychology of those games, both are now playing for the penalty shootout because there are 10 minutes left. They don't want to take risks. So, and penalty shootout, as we know, is a lottery. So
total lottery. Yeah, I still think that no matter what Portugal do now, fortunately or unfortunately, I just think Spain have that extra quality. They really do. That guy Lamine Yamal is just unreal. The two Williams brothers, especially Nico. I want Nico Williams in the Premiership. I want him in the Premiership. I think
you will. I think it's a matter of
unreal.
a year or two. Yeah.
Yeah. From one to that coach again. Apparently he wasn't, the biggest coach in the world, but he just has the talent that he has on his hands and the way they can fluidly play. Again, like we were talking about PSG earlier on, they can play in any position. They can switch. They can move. They can, they're like chasing shadows. They're so fast. They're so fluid. And I do think, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, Portugal might do the Portugal on it and, win it. But I think it'll be Spain, Yeah.
They are the favorite for sure. Right. So I think we covered most of the European action, including the Premier League. So I think that was great. We can do this over and over again. Maybe we can do a preview of the upcoming season in July or August together with Cornell. But I think it was brilliant. You guys provided really interesting insights on what happened, what might be behind the scenes, what are the factors impacting the results, because football is complex and there is a lot to be said about it.
Yeah, I'd like to do it again. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed Cornell's contributions and and yours, and yeah, I thought it was cool. So I'd definitely be up for doing it again, and maybe a preview of next season. You know, who knows?
Sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good.
Have you considered sports writing, just to mix the two topics we should discuss it?
Not yet. Who knows? I don't know.
Who knows?
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. I'd be happy to do it again. You know.
Good stuff. Right. So just for the viewers, so Jeroen will be back together with Maria on the 24th. No, yeah,
24th,
last Tuesday. Yeah, last Tuesday of the month. Same time. So half 8 for those who are in Ireland or in the UK. We will discuss writing with something you guys are into. In terms of sports, we most likely won't have a League of Ireland discussion this Thursday because there was the break and all that. So we probably will go back Thursday the 19th. So stay tuned. We are not going away just because of the break and some personal commitments. We probably will reinstate the sessions from Thursday 7. Now, these sessions start a bit early. They start at 7, and we might start a bit earlier on Thursday 19. So, yeah, I want to thank everyone who watched us. I want to thank you, first, for participating, Jeroen. It's always a great pleasure to have you here. And if you are satisfied with the content we have delivered, we'll be very happy if you can subscribe to the channel. If you know someone who was into this sort of conversation, sports or even other topics related, but let's say it's conversations without BS, just direct, no filters, make sure to share with someone who was into this kind of interactions. And if you want to tell thank you, the best way to do it is to press that like button below. And if you haven't decided on what to do with your holiday this year, make sure to contact Travel Devise and get that discount on the description. So those lads, they'll be able to tailor a trip according to your wishes and needs. They're experts. They have been all over the place, and they really can fulfill your wishes. So thanks everyone, and I see you very soon. Take care.
See you.